Hey everyone. This past Sunday, I attended a rally called Rescue the Republic in Washington, D.C. It was organized by and attended by those who are unhappy with the past 4 years of governance and the dangers that collusion between government, business, and nonprofits poses to the survival of the Republic. The website for the rally and the organization is jointheresistance.org. I attended most of the rally and watched parts of the live stream, which is now posted on Brett Weinstein's YouTube channel and possibly other channels. The rally took place on the National Mall near the Washington Monument. I would ballpark the attendance at a few thousand at its peak. The reserved area wasn't completely packed with people, but a demonstration that's overtly anti-Democratic Party is unlikely to draw a large crowd in D.C. Also, the weather wasn't very good that day. My general impressions are as follows. Politically, it was anti-Biden-Harris, but only occasionally overtly pro-Trump. But most of the speakers have implicitly or explicitly supported Donald Trump's candidacy as the alternative to the status quo. The speakers and attendees were a mixture of disaffected Democrats, libertarians, and MAGA Republicans. It was a very eclectic group with a wide variety of favorite causes, and there was a strong anti-establishment vibe. Several speakers and many audience members openly professed their religious faith. That was a significant component of this and a bit of a surprise for me. There was a large Make America Healthy Again organization component to it, which is RFK Jr.'s initiative that Donald Trump has appeared to buy into. And I think they were one of the sponsors of the rally. The crowd was enthusiastic generally. The biggest name speakers in terms of political and cultural impact were RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Russell Brand, Jordan Peterson, Matt Taibbi, Senator Ron Johnson, and Brett Weinstein. Again, go to the website and you'll surely see others from the political, entertainment, and medical spheres that you recognize. They've identified what they call the 8 pillars of their movement, which they discussed at the rally. Each one of them uses the term industrial complex. This is the language of President Dwight Eisenhower, who warned shortly before leaving office about what he called the military-industrial complex. While he expressed support for an ongoing, robust armaments industry, he was troubled by the potential power wielded by the alliance between government and industry. Here's a portion of the speech.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
This was a profound statement, considering he was probably the most admired ex-military man in the world at the time. This group is extending that concept to 7 other pillars of the movement, and in many cases you can add news and entertainment media as supporting these complexes. So I'll go through the 8 pillars. Number 1 is war is always the last resort versus military-industrial complex. This essentially was just explained by myself and President Eisenhower previously, so I won't go further into that, but it was presented at the rally by Tulsi Gabbard, who is a former Democratic congresswoman and is also a lieutenant colonel in I think it's the National Guard, and she actually served time in Iraq while she was in the military. And also Colonel Douglas McGregor addressed this. The second pillar is sanctify/recodify informed consent versus medical industrial complex. Several doctors and other speakers appeared at the rally, the most prominent being Drs. Robert Malone and Pierre Corey and Senator Ron Johnson. This pillar came out of the movement against mandatory COVID vaccinations, but also addresses other issues with corruption in the medical industry and government. The third pillar is banish state media control, surveillance, and propaganda versus censorship industrial complex. This pillar is mostly about the alliance between government, news media, and social media to censor speech and propagandize. This was addressed by many of the speakers because it's so fundamental. The most prominent were Tulsi Gabbard, Brett Weinstein, Jordan Peterson, and Matt Taibbi. The fourth pillar is enact a rational border policy versus immigration industrial complex. This was addressed mostly by Tulsi Gabbard, and she talked about what she discovered and witnessed firsthand: how nonprofits and their CEOs with million-dollar salaries and the Mexican cartels conspire to usher people into the country, and how the Biden administration has turned the Border Patrol into a taxi service to facilitate this. The fifth pillar is end lawfare and abuse of the judicial system versus injustice industrial complex. I don't remember that being addressed specifically during the rally, but it refers to the abuses of the judicial system that are directed at political opponents and dissenters, with the most recent and obvious example being Donald Trump. The sixth pillar is secure monetary freedom versus finance industrial complex. Chris Martenson talked mostly about the dangers of central bank digital currencies and other efforts of governments and financial institutions to control behavior, as was done to the Canadian truckers during COVID. The seventh pillar is restore family sovereignty versus developmental industrial complex. This covers everything from vaccine mandates for children to pushing transgenderism and medical treatments without parental permission. Heather Hying primarily addressed this. The eighth pillar is return to truth-seeking and open dialogue versus academic industrial complex. Jordan Peterson, who knows this from personal experience, spoke on this and wants to restore critical thinking in education and remove political indoctrination. A lot of this dissatisfaction has its roots in the government's handling of the COVID epidemic, which touches several of these pillars. I won't try to go through the positions and statements in detail, but some of the statements were extreme or exaggerated or not true, but in general, it wasn't as far out there as one might expect. On a personal note, I think there's not enough interrogation of these issues to simply dismiss the opinions of the people at this rally. As I said, much of the dissatisfaction with the status quo has its roots in the COVID pandemic, and it amazes me how little interest there is in examining failures and corruption in our systems that were exposed by COVID. I suppose it's because there are too many powerful interests to be called to account. In an atmosphere in which even questioning the authorities on these issues is considered dangerous mis- or disinformation, I think the work of the people involved in this is important. My approach always is, if you're in a position of power and believe in the righteousness of your policies and decisions, why can't you be questioned about it? The most important of these pillars is the one about censorship and propaganda. Without free speech, none of the other pillars can really be addressed. I think trying to start a movement based on so many issues isn't practical, but that one would be a good start. It's an open question whether Donald Trump, if elected, will entertain the questions raised by this group or whether he's just using them for political advantage in the election. I think they're choosing him in part because he's not a hood ornament on an enormous political machine as Kamala Harris is. He pretty much owns the Republican machine now. We'll see if that machine ends up serving his own short-term interests or is open to systematic change. If you want to watch the live stream, there are a lot of good speakers. Brett Weinstein's YouTube channel has the live stream separated into segments for each speaker. I would recommend Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand together was very interesting and entertaining, Brett Weinstein, and Heather Hying. There's also some music and comedy if you're interested in that. That's all for now. Comment and subscribe if you want more of these videos. Thanks for watching.